Welcome back to Spitballin Cards. In today's episode, we're talking all about the Dodgers. Are they ruining your baseball card investments? In this episode, you have me, Scott, we have Chris, we have Phil, and we have Ty. Jeff is not here. I'm wearing my Star Wars shirt in remembrance. That's the wrong word for sure. But for you, Jeff, he's actually canon in Star Wars as an animated character. He's a voice actor. Pretty cool. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. People are freaking out. I don't think we need to summarize everything that's going on. There's Tanner Scott, there was Roki Sasaki, there's other players signing with the Dodgers. People are really upset about this whole situation. And so first I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on if the Dodgers are winning baseball? Do we need a salary cap? Do we need a salary floor? Do we need to restrict deferrals? All this stuff. Let's talk about that for a minute. That's not baseball card related, but then let's talk about the fallout for baseball cards, if any. So Ty, let's hear your thoughts first on the Dodgers situation.
I think the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And baseball, people fall all the time. There are a lot of good teams. Every year during the playoffs, there are a lot of capable teams. There's always a team that makes it that's got really good pitching, especially in a shortened series. Like anything can happen. I think people are upset because the Dodgers, okay, they won this last year. They've had a lot of other really dominant seasons. They've had a lot of really good teams for the last 8 years or whatever, and they've won it twice. Some people contest the one in the shortened year, but I don't. They won it, whatever. I don't hate it. I personally don't hate it. I think it's kind of exciting. I think in general for the sport of baseball, just the way people work, the way fans and casual fans work, they like to see super teams. This helps English Premier League. This helps a lot of leagues, the Lakers and Celtics, and there's a reason these teams that they just keep getting good regularly and having good teams. It makes, it creates that dichotomy of like villain versus hero. And so, we have a lot of small market teams that can occasionally rise up and compete. And it's exciting. It creates a good narrative. It's much like March Madness when you have, underdogs going on runs and taking out number one seeds and things like that. So personally, from just a pure baseball fandom standpoint, I don't hate it. To me, it's like, if you're going to do it, just do it. And then it'll be that much funnier and more fun when we beat you. Somebody's going to take you out.
Talked about the NL West divisions in the playoffs. They have won every single NL West division title since 2013, except for in 2021 when the Giants won 107 games. You guys remember that out of nowhere?
Yeah, it was weird.
But regardless, they had one World Series heading into this year, and they were the laughing stock of Twitter. It was ironic. Now it's X, but everybody said, "Oh, you only have one Mickey Mouse title, this and this and that," and like that's really annoying for Dodgers fans. I'm like not a fan of the Dodgers, but I'm very aware of them because of Mookie, right? And they have been poked at very heavily, and it's funny to see it switch because they won one other World Series. How now they're ruining baseball, even though like they're always been told that they're a bunch of chokers, and Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman choked last year, and so I think it's poetic now. They went from the biggest chokers with no World Series since '87 to ruining baseball that quickly. So, but you're right, Ty. Remember in 2023, they got swept by the Diamondbacks, right? And then 2024, they should have lost to the Padres. They absolutely should have lost to the Padres. If the Padres could have scored a run in 24 innings, they would have lost to the Padres.
That's true.
That's how baseball works. And so I agree. My thoughts as well. I think it's good for baseball in some ways. The economics of baseball, no, but good for baseball's popularity. Yeah, I think it's probably a good thing, especially in Japan. Chris, prove me wrong.
I hate this. I absolutely hate any one team like outspending everyone else. The Dodgers right now are $70 million deeper than any other team on their payroll. And it's just like, it's hard to see it. Like, it's obviously not a level playing field, and it didn't matter as much when the payrolls got out of hand because Cashman's a complete idiot. So he was just running the Yankees into the ground, and the people in charge of the Mets were borderline, mentally deficient. So they weren't using their money very well. But now we have a team like the Dodgers that has limitless money, and they actually have intelligent people running it. So we're looking at a situation where they could just rattle off like 5 or 6 in a row. And like these small market teams can't be expected to compete against the Dodgers over the course of a season. Maybe in a 5-game series, there'll be no team in baseball history is going to face more pressure in a division series than what the Dodgers are going to feel.
I agree.
This October.
It'll be their first series that matters this whole year.
Yeah.
Legitimately. They will have a cakewalk with the division. Diamondbacks are going to be great. Padres still have a chance of making the playoffs and postseason. but the first series that's going to matter is that division series.
Oh yeah.
And they're going to have a week off. And we've heard up until this year how it's a big deal to have a week off and it's bad for those teams. Like they could just choke that away. And that's the hardest part for Dodgers fans this year. It's going to be fun to watch the regular season, but like, does it even matter now? I don't know. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, just some data to back up Scott's argument here. The Marlins have as many World Series wins over the last 40 years as the Dodgers, and that's giving them full credit for 2020. So total wins and, expected championships over the next 10 years, that's a little bit different. Did the Marlins get lucky? Obviously they did. But I think, you look at other leagues like the NFL that's thrived with now very different situation, right? Salary cap, like everybody has access to the same resources. There should be a little bit more parity in theory, but the Patriots won 7 championships over the course of 20 years, actually 6, and then Brady got his 7th with Tampa Bay, right? And now we have a situation where the Chiefs could have 4 Super Bowls in the course of, 9 years or something. So I think, I look at that and also look at some other leagues too. It's not just the NFL. And I think leagues can still thrive with the lack of competition or parity. And I think the reason why is because what's more important for the sport than competition is talent and superstars. And I think a global superstar with Ohtani on top of that, that's just another bonus. So, we could talk about like what this could do to Dodgers prices versus other players. I don't know if we're going to go there, but that obviously Derek Jeter, if the Yankees don't win 3 World Series with him on the team, his prices aren't what they are today. So I'm not a big believer in like 1 World Series win. We say 5.
Yeah.
5 World Series. It's okay. You're thinking Mookie Betts with 3 is what you're thinking.
It's okay. It's the Phil. I'm right that the Yankee hater in all of us wants to diminish the accomplishments.
Let's say it again with 5.
Move him didn't count.
Yeah.
All right. I was okay. I was thinking
2 with Clemens shouldn't count.
I was thinking the 3 in the 4 years. I was thinking that, and then I was okay. Yeah, there was 2009. There was another one. Okay, but I think there's a little bit of a difference between the Yankees and the Dodgers. The Yankees were a very well-run team that spent a lot of money and had a lot of money. The Dodgers are a very well-run organization from top down. So you look at talent acquisition, talent development, scouting, and everything in between. And the players don't deserve as much credit for that sort of winning formula because it's more of the organization that's doing it. But this could be. I don't think the Dodgers will win 5 in a row or 6 in a row. But if they win 3 of the next 4, are we really going to be that surprised? I'm a big believer in a player having that much success on one team, whether it's attributable to them or not. I think that could be very good for some of the players on the Dodgers.
Well, let's look at Ohtani in the World Series. I know he was hurt past game 2, but he still had a bad World Series and they still won the World Series. And that's just what baseball is. It's such a different animal. So I actually think it's great for baseball. Baseball economics, again, probably not. We can talk about ways we can fix it. Well, we're not going to fix anything, but the players union's there's going to be a strike because of the whole situation. But regardless, it's great to have a villain. This is a huge villain. Not only do we have the Dodgers who are just perfectly run and they have players everybody loves, like it's hard to really hate anybody. And plus now the whole country of Japan is rooting for them. Do we realize how big of a deal the Dodgers are now in Japan? Like that is great for Major League Baseball. Also
Korea. Don't forget they signed that infielder from Korea as well. So
yeah, like it's just, they are going to be a juggernaut. Every part of their roster looks good. They have great starting pitching. They have a great lineup. And now their bullpen at Tanner Scott's really good. And they'll still find a way to lose in at least one of the next 3 years. If they win 3 in a row, I'd be shocked. The last team to do that was the Yankees. And before that was probably the Yankees back in the whenever. So I don't think it's bad. I think it's probably good, but it sucks for a lot of NL teams.
It's good to have someone to root against. It was the A's in the 70s, by the way, but like, it's good to have someone else it's good to have someone to root against, and the Dodgers will be like the villain, but like October's a crapshoot. Like, what can happen in October? You never know. Like, a fan could reach over the fence and catch a ball that was a surefire out and turn it into a game tying home run that launches a team's dynasty. things can happen that you can't predict, that are out of everyone's hands. But like the Dodgers can effectively, and they will just buy their way into that dance, every year for the next 8 years. So if you're the Rockies, the Diamondbacks,
they're in
Giants,
a
Padres,
tough
like,
division.
It's tough.
Like historically speaking, if you look at the division, the NL West, I'm glad they're in that division, like with those teams. Arizona's young, they're talented, they're making moves and bringing in pieces. Yeah. They knocked them out 2 years ago and made it to the World Series. Like you said, the Padres they're not afraid to spend money. They're competitive. The Giants are very much not afraid to spend money, and they seem to just somehow come around every 4 years, sometimes from being horrible to making it to the World Series. So even if you look at the last 10 years and the teams that have made it, mentioned the Diamondbacks, Tampa Bay's always in the mix, every few years and has a really strong team in spite of spending no money. The Brewers, I know much to Jeff's chagrin, are not making it to the World Series. But last year, if Devin Williams would have figured out how to not give up a 3-run homer to Pete Alonso, they might have gone through the next round. And then who knows? You just never know. The Brewers were hot last year. They had all the reason to believe they could have actually made a run, and it just didn't happen, but it's fluky. And then, of course, you got Cleveland in the mix. Kansas City made it back-to-back years. This is all a recent memory over the last decade that even small market teams are viable. And you've had teams paying tons of money to athletes. This is nothing new at all for the last 20 years or more. So I don't think it makes things less competitive, or it's not as much of a shoe-in to me that the Dodgers I don't even think it's a shoe-in that they run away with the division. We've looked at their pitching staffs for the last few years and thought, wow, they top to bottom, their starters, their relievers, everything looks great. And then this person's injured, Kershaw can't go, this person's beating up women, this person's whatever, just there's a lot of things that can happen. I will say from a baseball economics and everything perspective and exposure, I pulled the numbers. Last year's World Series television ratings were up 74% from the year before with the Rangers and Diamondbacks.
Is that just in the U.S. too, though? Because I don't think that includes Japan numbers.
It probably doesn't. It's probably, like you said, that's just the major networks in the U.S. So yeah, it's a huge thing. The thing that makes me the most mad is how many players they have that I actually genuinely like. I want to be able to just root against them, and they have a bunch of likable players. So that's probably the most frustrating part about it, because I really don't want to root for them. I've always been team underdog, Yeah.
One of the hardest parts about the Dodgers recently we've seen, though, right, Roki took less money to go there. But I mean, no one can fault Roki. There's 2 other teammates who speak Japanese. It didn't make sense for him to go to Toronto. No offense. I know it was kind of it led them on a little bit. They traded some players in order to get more international bonus pool money, which sucks. But he was going to LA just because that's where his 2 friends were, which makes total sense. The one thing that might be hard to compete for all major league teams is if Japan continues to turn out talent like they're turning out, then maybe we need an international draft. And the players are so adamant against international draft because of the signing bonuses that happen with international pool money for the younger players in other Latin countries a lot of the time. So they're against that. But at the same time, Japan just can't be a AAA team for the Dodgers. So that is something that teams can't really compete against. So that's a legitimate gripe, in my opinion. That is just a bonus of being good and having Shohei Ohtani. That's the reason why they wanted Ohtani in the first place, and the reason why Ohtani is doing what he's doing. And it kind of all goes back to him. Without Ohtani, this wouldn't be a conversation, obviously. But they need to figure that out. So it's either going to be a salary cap as the conversation or an international draft as the conversation, both of which will probably lead to a lockout, if we're being honest. I don't.
Do you guys think? Do you think there is a chance? I think there's a very legitimate chance the league just splits in half. We go Premier League, Champions League. It just seems like it's heading in that direction anyway. I don't really. The more Jeff and I have talked about this on our Blabbin show, the less argument against it I can make.
I think there's a near 0% chance, but what do I know?
Wait, you're saying, you said, I think your analogy was wrong to soccer. You're saying they split the league in half and have a top tier talent league.
Yep. You got your 12, league? Premier League on top, Champions League underneath. So you get your 12 biggest markets up
they
top.
Wouldn't
Champions
do that.
League is a different thing.
They wouldn't do that with
it's the next, or the championship, whatever it's called. The Champions League is the next one down, isn't it? Is it Premier?
Champions League is the highest league. It's the competition between all the leagues. I know what you're
Premier
saying.
League then?
Premier is just England.
Oh, but the highest one in England.
Yeah, and then you have Bundesliga, and you have Serie A, and you have La Liga, and you have all Liga.
What's the
And
one
then
under
all their
Premier
host
League in
teams.
England?
It's called like it is like League of Champions or
Okay.
I don't know, something like that.
Close
Yeah,
enough.
I don't know because I don't care about it. But
No,
I'm
I
just
don't.
saying.
I don't think that'll happen. The way that revenue
either.
sharing is set up, they get like $70 million right now. Let's talk about the Marlins for revenue sharing. They're not going to go be a lesser team and then hurt their team value. I don't think that'll happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
But is it a bad idea? I don't know. I never thought about it, but I can't imagine with the baseball economics happening. What do you think? Phil?
So there is some. I mean, this doesn't refute what Chris is saying per se, because what Chris is saying is there's a small crop of teams. It's not just the Dodgers that are competing with more resources. I think the luxury tax has helped a little bit. And if you look at
while you're pulling that up, Phil, Rangers, Diamondbacks, Phillies, Braves, Astros, Dodgers, Rays, Nationals, Astros, Red Sox, Dodgers, Cubs, Indians, Royals, Mets. There's just so many different teams that have been in the World Series. I don't really think it's as big of an issue. A lot of smaller market teams too.
But I think that just hides when you look at who actually wins the World Series, I think that kind of hides the problem a little bit because there is such a variance in October. Phil mentioned the Marlins, and the Marlins still give me nightmares as a Braves fan. The Braves won 14 straight division titles, and during that stretch, the Marlins won more World Series than the Braves did.
Yeah.
So like in October, everything goes out the window, but like you can basically buy your way into October, but not every team can.
Then maybe we should explain the playoffs, the 14 teams at that point, right? We bastardized the regular season, and now we have less of an issue with that because it's more of a crapshoot, right? It's one of those things where
all of us a pretty big crapshoot as it is.
It is. Baseball is the hardest postseason in sports.
Yeah.
Well, you could say hockey. I don't know hockey well enough to really say. I miss being between the main American sports.
So here you're seeing, you can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So 2025 and 2024, the big picture doesn't look too much different. You've got four teams at the top that are all close to one another. Now this doesn't count Ohtani's deferred money, obviously. But 279 million to 261. I don't know if that's large enough between the Phillies, Dodgers, Yankees, and Mets. In 2024, the Astros were pretty high. So if you compare that to like 2011, in 2011, we had the Yankees and then a 20% drop to all the other teams. So on a percentage basis, and probably the same story, if not more significant, in like the late 90s when the Yankees were dominating. So there are more teams that are competing at the top versus the Yankees spending 50% more than everybody else now. But I mean, is that really fair for the teams at the bottom? I don't know. Is this an effort inequality issue or an income inequality issue? It's a little bit of both.
That's the question, Phil.
Yeah.
That's the real question, because I know the Cubs owner, don't know his name, but he was basically saying our goal is to be even, to not like to break even is their goal. But you know for a fact he's talking about baseball money from like ticket sales and concessions. He's not including his whole little village he built around the stadium that's making him millions and millions of dollars. You know he's not. So they are making money even though they're pretending they aren't, if that makes sense. And until teams are willing to open their books like the Braves, I feel like no one's going to take owners serious, unfortunately. But either way, I think I know how to solve the problem. Let's talk about some baseball cards. All they need to do is get rid of the way deferrals are structured with modern day present values, make deferrals worth what their deferred value is. So instead of Ohtani being $43 million for a cap hit, it's now $70 million. That's going to make it a lot harder. Instead of the Dodgers being like a $370 million payroll next year, it'd really be like a $460 million payroll. So they wouldn't be as willing to spend. Who knows if the Players Association is going to be okay with that, but it's better than a hard cap, in my opinion. So anyways, any thoughts on that before we jump into cards more now?
Now let's talk about some cards. But yeah, if we get a cap, we have to have a floor. Like you've got to force teams like the Marlins and Pirates can't pocket revenue sharing anymore.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's stupid. Like right now, the Marlins have made 0 moves for the major league club.
They spent $0.
But
Oakland was. I think Oakland was forced to spend money. I think the league made them.
It's so obvious they were forced to spend money with what they've done this offseason. No offense to Luis Severino. But baseball cards are unique because I did a generational poll just barely, and it was very interesting. And players that are viewed as the most generational for our era so far, I would say in the 2010s to early 2020s is Ohtani at number 1, then Trout, then we have Judge, and then Betts. Judge was third even with the bad postseason. So even the recency bias, he's still really high. So that's good for him. But we see Derek Jeter also was voted as generational, which alludes to all the World Series and championships and stuff. So do we think even the players on the Dodgers, it's going to help their legacy? Or do we think that those that are joining like an Ohtani, who had to join a super team in order to win them, it hurts? We have players like Mookie and Freddie who won them before. Mookie with the Red Sox and the Dodgers, before the Dodgers with the Dodgers. And then Freddie won one with the Braves. Do we think now that they're together, those joining like an Ohtani or a Sasaki or a Yamamoto, it negatively impacts their legacy or the view on those championships?
No.
You don't think so? Doesn't impact their cards?
Not at all. I would just point to other sports where the teams have been like dynasties and had super teams, and it hasn't hurt Steph Curry and it hasn't hurt LeBron James and it hasn't hurt like these big super teams get the most bandwagon fans who just want to root for the team that wins it all the time and has all the whatever and is the big city market, and they garner a lot of jersey sales and other things. And then if anything, those fans prop up the value of the players. Like I don't think it hurts. I don't think them being part of a super team really hurts their legacy much, especially in baseball, which is such a team sport. Like just overall, it's not even like I guess I could like point back and play devil's advocate to somebody like Kevin Durant, who sort of does have a black mark on him because he's just jumped from super team to super team, like to win things, and it mostly hasn't worked out for him. But overall, I don't think that hurts their card values at all because they're part of a super team, like in the sense that people are, they're just trying to win championships. The thing that might hurt is if they just get lost in the spotlight. And if you go to the Dodgers, you're going to be in the shadow of Ohtani, no matter who you are. Like, I don't care who you are. You're going to be in Ohtani's shadow. And so then everybody else is just competing for spotlight. Makes it much more difficult to stand out, especially I would say for like other hitters, if they're just, competing with him.
That's a legitimate concern I have about someone like Mookie. I'm sure you feel the same way, Chris, about Freddie. I'm sure whenever you watch a broadcast, you know what they're talking about the whole freaking time? Ohtani, the whole time. They don't even talk about Freddie and Mookie. It's very interesting.
In the World Series, they definitely talked about Freddie. But they had that graphic that I've never seen before that was like Shohei Ohtani's up in 4 batters. Shohei Ohtani's up in 3 batters. That was hilarious. I've never seen that in baseball before. That was kind of cool.
Supposedly, they did the same thing for like Harper. Supposedly. I didn't see it, but they did.
But the Phillies didn't have that many. Unfortunately, they didn't have that many games in the postseason. I don't think those 3 guys can be overshadowed, but I would say it definitely will hurt. Like if you're a big collector of like say Will Smith or Teoscar or I mean, I don't know why, but Max Muncy, like those guys, like they're just never going to matter. Even Tommy Edman, like they're never going to matter. But I feel like Betts and Freeman will have enough accolades and do enough on their own to stand out.
Yeah, I think. Is it fair to say Mookie Betts is our generation's Derek Jeter, but better?
Yeah.
If he gets 5 World Series rings with the major market team, but just a better player offensively and defensively. Phil's thinking down there. Like, is that a
comments are about to get spicy?
Jeter's got some intangibles that help him. Even though he also doesn't have much of a personality, which
like
a lot of people.
What's his intangibles? Being boring?
Girlfriends? I don't know.
Negative defensive run saved.
The Yankee hater. I mean, there's some intangibles.
Career OPS lower than Billy Butler. OPS
being from Michigan.
A lot of people in the 90s copied Griffey's swing, and a lot of people probably try to copy Jeter's sort of off-balance throw from shortstop. So he transcended baseball a little bit. I don't want to upset people because I do think it's real. I do think Jeter has some sort of X factor. I agree. Even though he's a reserved person when it comes down to it, just like how Mookie is. And people call Mookie not flashy, even though Mookie is 5 tools. Oh. So how can we quantify flash at the end of the day? Do you have to have like
flash is different than clutch, right? Like Jeter we've talked about this so many times before that Jeter showed up in big moments.
Jeter has a postseason win probability added of 1.4% for his career.
Yeah.
So.
But that's not the perception, right?
Right. Yeah. He has a perception of showing up in really big spots, but statistically, to his credit, he was consistent. Well, he was steady.
He does. He played 158 games in the postseason. So he has some big moments, but he also had some really bad moments.
Maybe it's a volume game more than
yes. Well, look at Mookie. If he would have never made the postseason again, until this year where he had a good postseason, won the World Series, he would have had that against him in the rest of his career, how he's a bad postseason performer. Yeah. So like it is a volume game for sure. Judge, if you give him another 100 games, let's say 30 games, and he all of a sudden has the most home runs in the postseason ever, it could change the perception. And that's what's helped Jeter. But no, I actually don't think Derek Jeter's overrated. I would consider him one of the generational players of his era. I would.
I think the only thing that could hurt these Dodgers is if they don't win.
Yes.
Like if they just lose in the LCS every single year, then there's going to be a problem.
They need to win one more if they don't want to get clowned. Because if they have the biggest budget ever and then they just can't win, they choke and choke and choke. Then yeah, I agree.
I was thinking a little bit like with Teapot's argument, I would take it a slightly different direction. So I don't think there's much downside in being on a super team because a Rich Harden, we're not going to look back at whoever was on that team if they fail to win another 2 or 3 championships over the next 10 years, because the championship didn't matter that much to begin with because it's baseball. It's a team sport, distributed accountability, distributed impact, distributed opportunity. So if the Dodgers fall on their faces, like, yeah, we'll make fun of the Dodgers, but I don't think it's necessarily going to hurt values. Now, the other side of it, the flip coin, like the other side of that is, well, what if the opportunity cost would have been, what if they won instead of lost? That could have helped, but I don't think not winning will hurt like a Freddie Freeman. I don't know. Just my opinion.
I think Mookie and Freddie are okay because Mookie has 3, Freeman has 2. Like, I don't think there's anything they need to worry about. Ohtani's the one whose legacy is going to be dependent upon more World Series, especially because he didn't perform great in the last one. I think if anybody has to worry, it's Ohtani, but I don't think any of us are worried about that. They're going to win at least one more is what it feels like. The one thing I'll note, though, is the Dodgers are pretty old, right? We were talking in our group chat, like, how can they lose? Mookie's going to be 32. Freeman's going to be 35. Ohtani's going to be 30. Teoscar's 32. Like, there's a chance these players regress, and all of a sudden their lineup's not very potent anymore, just like we see with other teams.
And then they've got like 4 guys in their farm system that come up and show up.
Yeah, no, they have still a top 5 farm system somehow. That's the good organization, and that's the problem, right? That's people's concern.
Their 9 starting pitchers will help facilitate some low scoring wins.
I do want to say though, for those that are upset about my Derek Jeter comments, he was very good, all-time hits leader for a shortstop. We love Derek Jeter. I'm just joking.
Play the villain, Scott.
It was a joke.
I wasn't joking. You can blast me in the comments.
Billy Butler is not better than Derek Jeter. I was joking. Sorry.
So
he had a long runway.
For us, it's okay.
Jeter had a long runway of like being the team's.
He was the captain.
Would consider best and most popular player of the major market team for a number of years. Yeah, Mookie Betts had that for a few years. Yeah, with the Red Sox.
He had it with the Dodgers too, except for those years, like they lost up until 2024. They won in 2020, but that was clowned on, right? Up until Ohtani came, he was the guy
for a couple of years, but then he split some love with Freddie Freeman a little bit.
If you ever watched Dodgers games, though, they only talked about Mookie. He's playing shortstop.
And Max Muncy.
Yeah, but I know what you're saying, Phil. But, like, do we think A-Rod was a better player than Derek Jeter? Probably.
Was Clayton Kershaw better than Mookie Betts?
In historical perspective, yeah.
Yeah. So far, yeah.
Kershaw, yeah, he's pretty good. Anywho.
So I have a question about, cards-wise, if the Dodgers do kind of they go on a run here, could the Dodgers kind of be what Michael Jordan was to other basketball players of his era?
I was wondering that for, like, a Judge.
Yeah, or they keep guys like Aaron Judge or Francisco Lindor
or Harper. Harper's a big one in the same.
What if they prevent Harper from getting his title? They prevent Acuna from reaching another World Series.
NL team, definitely.
Yeah, they can do a lot of damage to other people's legacies over the next 5 or 6 years.
Maybe, but baseball's not like basketball. Like the championships don't matter as much.
Depends how many
big moments help. The big moments help.
Yeah,
and playing in October matters in a sense, and you remember it. But I don't think it's like a straight 1-to-1 comparison.
It's not a 1-to-1. Stockton and Malone have that mark against them for sure.
Payton, Stockton, Malone, Charles Barkley, everybody that Jordan and the Bulls prevented from getting titles
it hurts.
Definitely, basketball's all about titles. All about titles.
That's why basketball frustrates me. I'm a Jazz fan now, so that makes sense. But to answer your question, I thought the same thing for Bryce Harper. And Juan Soto's fine. Lindor, I don't think he's considered a generational player regardless of what happens, if that's fair. But Harper kind of is on the cusp. And without that World Series, will people give it to him? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah. I don't know. To
It could
me,
be
like
interesting.
nothing's baked in. Nothing's
No.
baked in with regards to like World Series victories. Like with Ohtani, his prices aren't going to crash if the only reason that people get upset is because he didn't win a World Series. Like his prices will crash because he might have expectations baked in, but that's all regular season stuff. That's future MVPs. That's WAR. That's home runs. That's stolen bases. If the Dodgers fall on their faces, or if he gets injured in the playoffs again, I don't think that would be the reason for like a 20% Ohtani dip. So it kind of works both ways. Like it's not going to help you that much. It's not going to hurt you that much.
I could see it really hurting or helping a player like Soto or Harper if like 2 straight years Harper just dominates them in the LCS and like bullies the Dodgers out. Like I could see that elevating Harper or elevating Soto in that regard.
Well, it would have been huge for Tatis if they would have ended up beating the Dodgers. It would have been huge for him between that little rivalry that's forming right now. So I agree. Let's just say the Yankees have the AL so soft. So weird how the AL is soft and the NL is just stacked. And so Yankees have an easier path to the World Series, I think, than the Dodgers do, believe it or not. Because the Dodgers have to go against the Mets, they have to go against the Phillies, and they have to go against other teams. Where the Braves, there's another one. But while in the AL, you do have decent teams. Like, don't get me wrong, the Red Sox are actually going to be good this next year. But it's a lot different than the NL.
Don't sleep on Texas.
No, the Rangers, that's a good one. They're pretty good.
Now, if the Dodgers sign Bregman, we'll have a emergency live. I thought about trying to prank you guys and say, oh my gosh, the Dodgers signed Bregman, and you're looking at my phone, but nobody here would have actually believed it.
Speaking of Bregman, where's he going to sign? Where do you think
everybody keeps saying he's a lock to go to the Tigers because Hinch wants him, and I'm just.
I saw that the Cora wants him too in Boston, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Yankees were debating on Bregman, but he's really bad in that stadium. Really bad park for Bregman to play in versus Boston.
My desire not to have Bregman for the Tigers is. It's just a jaded view because I'm worried. I'm just living in the, this Javi Baez and Miguel Cabrera contract land that just didn't work out. And whatever reason, my gut just says Bregman's career is just going to regress after he gets this money. That's just a gut. And I hope.
Yeah, I agree. It feels like it.
I hope it's not true in general, but unless he goes to like a divisional competitor, but.
Yeah, I actually watched the Jolly Olive YouTube video about the poor contract history of the Tigers in the last decade. Pretty brutal, Ty.
Last year, you guys might remember this, in the playoffs, like here we are playing without Javi Baez and without Kenta Maeda. And those two guys accounted for, it was either 55 or 58% of the total team's payroll. Just those two guys.
Yeah.
That's insane.
The Tigers took off when Baez got hurt.
Yes.
That can't be a coincidence.
It's literally when things turned around. And I mean, if you think about baseball being such a close, run differentials and things being generally really close, it makes sense. It just makes sense. Like, get that guy off the field. I'm sorry.
How many more years do you have? 3 of Baez?
I think 3 years left. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is a good place to wrap this up. Unless you guys have other thoughts, I will say, I think we agree on one thing. If they win 2 or 3 more World Series, it's great for everybody's cards involved. Right.
Yeah, it's probably good for baseball to have a team to hate. I totally get that. I think we should everyone take a guess on the number of wins the Dodgers will have, and we'll come back and check and see who was closest.
Okay. I'll go first. I'll say, I'm going to say 108.
Okay.
Who's next, Chris? This is your question.
I'll go next. I don't want to suggest we do it and then go last. I'm saying they're breaking the record. I'm saying 118.
You think they're going to break it? I'm interested to. The only reason I don't know if they'll ever break it is because they might start resting guys in the end of August to get them prepared for the postseason because it's such a blowout. But I think that they'll get to about 112.
Okay.
114.
Ty's going to win by virtue of them getting 107.
You know what their current Vegas over-under wins odds is? Line here is...
I'm guessing it's 105. 104.
It's between 102 and 103.
Oh, man. I kind of want to go to 102.5,
103.5. I mean, obviously it's a 0.5, but I mean, I'd take the over on 102.5. Sounds like a radio
Absolutely.
station, but
All right.
competitive division. It's a competitive.
Any
How many
final
did they win
thoughts?
last year? How many did they win last year? I don't remember exactly how many they won.
Like 98.
Yeah, I don't think it was 100. Yeah.
But
98.
they dealt with injuries the whole time. Betts was hurt. All their pitching was hurt.
Right.
Yep.
That's the
That,
thing with
exactly.
their
That was going to be my point. How can it be 102 after these signings and getting people back? I don't know.
That's the thing with pitching, by the way, for the Dodgers is all of their guys, they've never pitched that many innings in one season. Blake Snell is the most innings ever pitched by a Dodger pitcher besides Kershaw, but we're not going to include him because he's not signed yet. Like 180 or 170 something. So like there's a chance that all these guys just break down, but they have so many, I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, they'll skip guys. They'll probably just like, give guys time off. They can even go 6 deep. They can even piggyback 2 guys, like have Ohtani go the first 4 and Kershaw go the next 3, and that's your game, something like that. I mean, they're so deep, it's ridiculous. All the depth charts I've seen aren't even including Gavin Stone, who I don't think he's out for the whole season either. So it's stupid how deep it is. It'll be, if you're a Dodger fan, it should be a fun season for sure.
Is Ohtani for sure going to pitch? Do we know?
Yes.
Yeah, but they said probably May. I'm guessing late May if I had to put money on it. But Dustin May's coming back. He has a year left. Gavin Stone. Then we have Bobby Miller, who is a top prospect who just struggled a little bit. Like they still have a lot of high guys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Walker Buehler has made some cryptic messaging that he maybe wants to get traded back.
Oh.
Like, keep my jerseys around, guys. They're really cool. Even though I'm on a different team for now, it's like, as a Red Sox fan,
yeah,
like whatever. Like,
how do you feel about Walker Buehler? Because obviously he was not that good until the postseason. Like he was not good.
There's a reason why he was as cheap as he was, and a lot of fans might look and see his numbers before, just like the name recognition, and might be like, oh yeah, I mean like $20 million, like this is awesome, 1-year deal. We got like a stud pitcher. Well, if you look at him last year, aside from like those few playoff standout starts, and also the year it was before he got injured, like his spin rates on a lot of his pitches went down by 20%. His fastball velocity was down. So his strikeout rate was way down. So everybody thinks that version of Buehler is more likely the one that we'll see in 2025 and not the one that we saw in like 2020, 2021 and earlier, the ace version of Walker Buehler. So crack down on the sticky stuff. Like, I don't know what happened. A lot of injuries maybe, and he's just a different guy now. So, I mean, it would be great. I mean, I still think it's a decent signing.
Yeah,
$20 million for like a number 3, number 4 pitcher. That's basically the market rate.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was 40 minutes of Dodgers baseball. I'm so sorry to everybody who had to listen. But it's worth talking about. We promise to keep it not as much in the future. But thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you in the next video.